Welcome back to Fresh Economic Thinking. You're with Cameron Murray and my regular co host, Jonathan Gadir. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thanks, Cameron. Good to be back chatting with you.
We're talking about Australia's economy as usual, but today we want to unpick the terrible news that came about a month ago that Australia's economic complexity is one of the least complex in the world, ranking 105th out of 145 nations. Now, that sounds pretty bad. I wrote an article on it, and you had a few questions, comments, and thoughts. So we thought it's time to unpack it a little more. Where should we start?
Yeah, companion podcast to your very interesting article. So, um, you know what? Well, I guess maybe you should, for people who haven't read the article, just talk a bit about just basics. What is complexity? And then I can come in with my my
Your
two.
questions. Oh, I thought we. Well, okay, complexity. Australia, we have this idea that we want to make things in Australia. Isn't it terrible that we don't make cars anymore? And wouldn't it be great if we could make jet engines for aeroplanes and big, complicated manufactured products are what rich countries produce and sell to the world? Australia doesn't sell those items to the world. If we look at the basket of exports in Australia, we sell the same stuff that the poorest countries in the world sell: iron ore, coal, gold, other minerals, agricultural products, and a very small array of sort of value added or manufactured products. And so, economic complexity, when it's measured, is it looks at all the exports of a country and says, how diverse is this range of stuff a country exports? Well, Australia's is kind of diverse. It's got lots of minerals and lots of agriculture. And within that diverse basket of goods, are we exporting stuff that only very few other rich and diverse countries can do? So if you export jet engines and manufacturing robots and things like that, then those count as a lot more because very few countries can do it and only the most diverse and complex countries can do it. So when you take all that into account, look at Australia from the outside, we're 105th. We're behind Botswana and Zambia and all these very, very poor nations. And people see that that's a bad thing. It's undesirable. So I sort of explained that maybe we don't truly believe that. So when everyone commentates and says, oh, Australia's behind Botswana or Namibia or something on this measure, I don't think anyone truly believes that, right? It's just something we say. And so the question is, how do we um, reconcile the reality that we don't really believe it, but it seems to be an issue with these measurements that sort of show it's an issue? And the reconciliation comes because ex- export rich, mineral rich countries that are far away from their trading partners, because we're only counting the export basket, which is 20% of the economy or less, you end up with this very unbalanced export basket. But the domestic economy, the other 80%, is still quite diverse and complex and producing lots of other different things. And if you measure other parts of the economy, like our ability to, create patents for new manufacturing processes and publish advanced research, you find Australia's in the top 10 of economies in terms of the complexity or ability to be productive and use knowledge in a productive way, which is sort of this underlying concept. So the article was about that, sort of telling people to chill out. We're not 105th. We're 105th if you count exports and ignore the huge abnormal dominance of coal, iron ore, gas, gold, and a few agricultural products. We are doing much better than that metric. So that was the article.
Yeah. Sorry. So just to clarify at the end there, you said we're 105th if we just look at exports, and we are therefore only reflecting the predominance of those, coal, aluminium, whatever, steel, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Um, uh, yeah. Um,
So
Yeah.
like if we instead exported more of the manufactured products, which we sort of don't because we're competing in a global market with other areas with more economies of scale, um, then we'd have a different metric. But we tend to only export those more bulk agriculture and mineral items. So if I compare us to Japan, for example, Japan's exports are dominated by cars, motor vehicle parts, machine parts, self-propelled bulldozers, excavators, and road rollers, printers and copiers, optical fibers, pumps for liquids. And if I look at Australia, it's literally just iron ore, coal, petroleum, minerals, gold, wheat, lamb, beef.
Yep. 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 But isn't it? It's not maybe that we've got all these things we make, but we don't export them. It's actually no, we don't make anything, but we've got services and academic research and stuff that Namibia and Botswana or Zambia don't have. So like it's just not it's not all like wonderful news. It's just a measurement issue here.
Yeah, of course, we don't make cars. We don't, and we don't make airplanes, and we may or may not make submarines in the future and ships and things like that. That's
Yeah, we're
definitely
never going
true.
to make it.
I guess the question you've got to have is this. Imagine Australia was 7 or 8 different countries. Imagine the states were different countries, and all the cars were made in one of those states and not the others, and they were all imported to those 6 other states. Um, would it be a bad thing for those 6 other states to rely on, say, Queensland for producing all their cars and submarines and satellite dishes or whatever? Or would you say, hey, that's just how the economy unfolds? We cluster certain uses in some places and not others. And as long as trade is open with, those other countries that do make it, well, we're going to sell them iron ore and they're going to sell us cars.
Yeah.
And the combined economy is very diverse and we're integrated into it. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
optimistic take and probably the mainstream economic take.
Yeah, I was going to say you very nicely expressed the sort of standard neoclassical view, and it's a neoliberal economist view of how 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 trade works, how economies can be most efficient, specialization, etc., etc. Now, what I want to ask is, so there is a line of thought that is kind of very well expressed in a book I read a million years ago, probably when I was a student, called In Praise of Hard Industries. And the point of view from this book, and you hear this from people now, especially after we've been through, the COVID crisis and so on, is that the point of view is that there's something special and something positive about having hard industries, meaning you make stuff, you manufacture stuff, um, and the positive thing is it's good for society because your society has a broader range of, first of all, it's more secure because you can't always rely on international trade. And secondly, it provides a broader range of options for your people. Not everyone's great at, you know, email jobs. Not everyone wants to sit around in front of a computer screen. Some people want to build things, some people want to work outdoors, etc., etc. And when you have manufacturing, it provides high quality jobs, high standard of living for a broader range of people. That's the
That's
that's the
another.
argument.
That's a common argument. I mean, that's a common argument today. That's a sort of Trumpian America First argument, and I think there is an element of truth in there. For example, um, typically, workers have exerted power to bargain for higher wages in sectors that have large capital investments. So when you strike at the Ford Motor Company plant, that actually matters to Ford quite a lot. Whereas, service-based sectors, it's not so easy because, there isn't this huge capital factory going to waste if everyone strikes for 90 days or some of those historical strikes were very long. And so, yeah, you can definitely say economies of scale industry generate bargaining power for workers because they rely on large capital investments and there's a lot of sort of surplus returns to those owners that can be shared through the bargaining with workers. That's a slightly different take on just it's a different type of job that's better for people. Um, but it's certainly been argued to be the case. Is that, a manufacturing job's better than other jobs? Have you seen a survey recently that came out of the
Well,
US?
I didn't say better. I just said what like is when we measure complexity, do we take into account um, that there's a benefit to society that is non-economic, yeah,
Yeah.
in having diversity. So I think the answer is no. They're not measuring the non-economic benefits. They're just saying, oh, here's complexity.
Mm.
Here's the figures. Some people say, oh, these figures are bad. Some people say these figures don't matter. Um, but I guess as usual, I'm just going, well, there's a non-economic factor. So a complexity might be a poor measure, but I think if we're talking about diversity, as in complexity, the way we're talking about it, using
Mm-hmm.
export to measure,
Mm-hmm.
it's poorly done. But there's diversity as a concept that is a thing we should
Mm.
have. Whether
Yeah, well,
Australia has that diversity, I don't think so.
most
Um,
most people sort of agree that that's all those made in Australia campaigns. They're all about, oh, we should be able to make lots of different products here, but we need people to buy them if we're going to invest in them. Um, so there is sort of an element there, and I have pondered, you know, where does that come from? And I think at the end of the day, it is a self-sufficiency, economic security belief or underneath it, right? We should be able to make stuff here because if there's a war and ships can't get to Australia, we're stuffed. We're going to have iron ore and petrol and lots of fresh fruit and vegetables and no way to ship them around or fix the tractor or with all the parts and components. And I think that is the logic. And I think um, that's sort of behind a lot of the US push currently, to onshore microchip manufacturing, to boost defense manufacturing domestically and have more local steel. I think if you dig right down, yes, maybe you can make a jobs argument, maybe you can make some general argument in favor of more diversity in the economy, but I think at the end of the day, it just becomes a security argument. What do you think that makes sense, or do you think there's more to it?
yeah, well, I mean, my point wasn't actually that that book in Praise of Hard Industry said it was a security argument. My point was that it said it was a social quality of life kind of argument. But the fact that if you're in Japan, you have the opportunity to be a high-tech engineer in, I don't know, digital camera plant, but that sort of opportunity just doesn't exist here. You have to be, you know, working in some
Yeah.
email
So,
job that,
or
yeah,
you're a mining engineer, you're working out how to cut holes in the ground, another
correct.
another
Well,
hole
okay.
that doesn't collapse on
I,
itself.
I don't have I don't have the ability to I don't have the ability to calculate whether Japan has like more like I mean variety. I guess I think it does, but yeah, I don't have the facts to back that up. I guess it's a question. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a value judgment there at the end of the day as well. Look,
yeah.
I for some reason, despite writing this article and trying to reassure people and explain the data, I also personally feel like, gee, why did we let the car industry die? Was there anything we could have done to support that sort of ecology of manufacturing and engine making and component parts? And would it have been worth it? Because, we're complaining today about productivity decline in Australia. In general, productivity only happens in manufacturing. Product, the rest of the categories of the economy are just what's other, you can relabel it as areas of the economy where you can't get productivity and areas of the economy where you can. And the areas where you can, we label that manufacturing because we, use large factories, equipment, techniques that give us economies of scale. And that's where it comes from. And the rest of us can go and be teachers and nurses, but there's very limited scope to, save labor on those. I mean, they are just labor services. And so it's
Yeah.
pretty weird that we gave up those industries, subsidize lots of other industries instead, and now complain about productivity.
But they were following the logic you explained before, which is we're not efficient at it. Other countries are more efficient at it. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And let's
Well, I
run it
guess
for
I'm
things.
not complaining about productivity right now, though.
Okay. Hey, I just wanted to play you, and I wanted to play you because I opened up YouTube when I read
Yeah,
your
great.
article. I typed in economic complexity, and I just saw this reel pop up about the Australian paradox. Some guy, European economist or something, somebody like that with a YouTube channel. So I thought I'd play you this reel, and then if it doesn't work, you can splice it
Yeah.
in later
Yeah,
if it
well,
doesn't seem good. And then he gets a lot of feedback from Australian viewers that he has, and I thought, well, you should give your hot take on what they think about Australia's being 105th and what because they
all
have
right.
some interesting points. Okay, so here we go.
Let's hear it.
Yesterday, I talked about Australia ranking 105th on the Harvard Economic Complexity Index because of what Professor Lars Konen calls the Australian paradox, a country full of smart cities and a rich but dumb economy. When I asked you, what's one change you think would be most beneficial to improve Australia's innovation performance? You didn't hold back. Across all my socials, I had hundreds of people comment their suggestions, so I wanted to share a few of the general sentiments of what's holding back innovation since this has obviously struck a universal nerve. Number one, tall poppy syndrome. Those who want to innovate, be better, or do something different are put right back in their place. That is, of course, unless you're a sporting figure or, I don't know, a rich mining magnate who inherited everything from daddy. This creates a vicious cycle and culture of anti-intellectualism. One person said, I don't remember ever having met an entrepreneur growing up in Melbourne. Sure, we had small business owners, but entrepreneurs and innovation weren't even on the table. Number two, prioritizing property and being a tradie as a means of making money. Why take risks when you can just guarantee a return with property or earn six figures holding a lollipop? This isn't to say being a tradie is wrong or not a worthwhile career. Plus, everyone should have the security of a roof over their heads, but when so much financial and cultural capital is put towards these two things, it doesn't leave much room for more innovative endeavors to materialize. Even worse, Aussies are so cash-strapped from buying homes, they don't have time or money to risk on being innovative. Funding, or a lack thereof, came up again and again. The government, banks, and businesses won't invest in people with smart ideas, so those people just take their ideas elsewhere. Brain drain, especially of qualified talent, leaves a big gap at home. One person put it best. The people with money have no ideas, and the people with ideas have no money.
I'll leave it there. But
Yeah, great.
so yeah, I think brain drain very interesting. Is this? I don't, that's something that exists here. Like we know that people who have like good ideas for businesses and startups, they just have to get out of here because there's just such limited opportunities. I don't know if that's connected to the topic we've been discussing today. And then there's the other one, the other point he made was kind of combining two completely separate things, which was tradies. You can get a good, earn a good living as a tradie, which I think is irrelevant. But property, right? That is something that sucks money out of the economy and just like dampens. Like, why would anyone bother trying to do something, invest in something innovative when you've just got this tax incentivized asset that will
Yeah, I
perform?
mean, well, I think most countries do have various tax incentives for property. I mean, in the US, you can deduct interest on your own mortgage from your taxable income up to a certain amount, for example. So that's pretty common. What we do have is a proportionally large construction sector because we have high population growth and build lots and lots of houses. And that's one area where there's a lot of concern right now. Oh, we don't have any construction productivity. But again, I've done some deep dives on the website, and a lot of that is just a classification problem. So when construction methods get shifted off-site into factories, those businesses get reclassified from construction to manufacturing. And again, all the productivity gains happen in that manufacturing category and not the construction category, which is just the on-site services.
But I think we're sidestepping the cultural critique that the people were making. So let's address
Well, I
that.
mean,
Like,
you could become more productive building houses. You could manufacture more components for building houses
no. But
here, more
let's talk about
toilets and
where the
windows and
on.
doors, and then you could export them. I mean, it's not clear to
But
me
let's
that
stop
it
not talk
makes the
about
economy
houses.
less diverse or less productive. What do you
Yeah.
reckon?
What I want to know is like,
The
I don't
culture
know.
of not
It seems to
investing and
me that
taking
there
risk.
a is like if there's no culture of risk taking, there's no culture of supporting entrepreneurs. There is a brain drain. There is a tall poppy syndrome. There is like just no point trying to develop like an innovative startup where people, you know, a big investor needs to come in, an angel investor needs to come in and support you, take a risk like that in Australia. Forget about it. You know.
Yeah. No, I think there is a grain of truth there, and I've actually, used the saying we need a better class of billionaires in Australia who want to start funding um, businesses and getting them growing, and but we seem to be very limited in scope. So I think there is a grain of truth to that. Is there anything stopping the US billionaires investing here for those um, same types of people? Like, just because the capital or the money is in the US doesn't mean they can't support local Australian startups. Maybe that culture will get important. I don't know. I think there is a grain of truth, but I'm not sure. Like, what can we do? We can
Would that
enc-
impact your complexity rating? The fact that you just don't have any like entrepreneur, startup culture.
only, well, in terms of the metric, only if that affects the composition of exports from Australia, right? So if
Yeah.
we had a lot of startups,
But if we forget about the metric and just about
the
like trying to
principle,
evaluate this, yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah, quite possibly, right? If we had, if we had done what the US did with their CHIPS Act, which subsidized on-site local manufacturing of microchips, yeah, that would probably increase Australia's complexity and both measured and conceptually because it would be scaled at an amount that would involve exports. Um, if we did similar with, if we had an Australian Spotify or Facebook or, something that's not, is Gumtree Australian or is that, like I'm trying to think of Australian websites that's have scaled globally. But yeah, that would help too. If we had pharmaceuticals that sort of scaled and the patents were used globally, manufactured partly here, but at least the service of the idea was sold, that would help too. So there's certainly lots of areas that sort of exist and could be scaled and would be great to have more of, but I'm always cautious that it's not like people aren't trying to do this, and how much are we willing to sort of spend to change this outcome and what do we get for it? And I think that's very unclear. Mm.
Okay. I really commend everyone to read Cameron's article on complexity that's on the Substack because it's just a very well argued, well presented piece. So yeah,
Thanks for those kind words, Jonathan. Let's wrap up that today, and everyone can check it out for themselves. Please like, comment, subscribe. I'm interested in all your thoughts on this topic as well. Thanks very much.
thank you.